Hey guys, it's Steven. Today I want to talk about the two things that I do before every trade. It doesn't matter if the market is moving because of earnings like it was today. It doesn't matter if there's news in the market. It doesn't matter if the market's moving rapidly or moving slowly. I'm always doing these two things. I'm looking for a spot and then I'm looking for a setup. And what I'm going to do today is literally walk you through my trading day today, what my chart looked like, what indicators I put on the chart, why I put them on the chart, and where I took trades and why I took those trades. So literally two-step process, find a spot. When the market opened this morning, we were gapping down. This is a 2-minute chart of the Qs. This is the pre-market. This is the open. We knew we were gapping down because of earnings out of Amazon yesterday. So we had weakness pre-market. The first couple of things I'm doing, I'm marking off the pre-market high, which again, I'm using the entire time frame for the pre-market. I've talked about this in another video and I had questions about it. I'm using the entire pre-market time frame. But if I see a bar like this, I'm pretty much ignoring it for my time frame. So my pre-market high is not going to be up here. It's going to be here closer to that 9:30 open for me, the New York open, right? The low is here, which is the actual pre-market low. When the market opened this morning, I didn't have a setup that I like to look for. And that is a power bar. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. A power bar higher off of this low, or a power bar lower off of this resistance level. That setup wasn't in play. So again, as I've responded to some questions about that particular setup that I did in another video, if there's no setup, there's no trade. So those are my first two spots, right? Find a spot. And now I'm looking for the setup. I found the spots, resistance and support, and there's no setup. So no trade. The market started to sell off pretty strongly. So the next thing I'm looking for with the market selling off like this is support. Where might the market stop and retrace higher? But the problem is I'm on a 2-minute chart here. And if I look back to the left for support, I'm not going to find it, right? There's no candles in this area to show me support. So what I'm going to do to solve that issue is start going up in time frame. So now I'm going to change to a 5-minute time frame. I'll bring this back over. Again, the market's dropping and I'm not seeing support. And all I'm looking for are candles over here, right? To the left, I'm looking for candles. So now I'm going to go to a 15-minute time frame and look for support. Again, this is this morning. And when I start scrolling back on the 15-minute chart, this is what I saw. This level, but we were going through it pretty rapidly. This 555 level, but by 9:45, we were already breaking through that level. So the next thing I did on my charts after drawing that pre-market high and pre-market low was draw this line, right? So I had this line in place a little after 9:45 because that's the next level of support on a 15-minute chart. There was nothing on the 2, there was nothing on the 5, so I went to the 15. If I saw nothing on the 15, I would have gone to the hourly to look for support. This is the area. Again, it's an area, it's not just a line, but it's right around the 552 area for the Qs. That's now my support. And I'm going to go back to the 2-minute chart. So now around 9:45, I have a support area and it's here, the 552 area. So what I'm now looking for as we approach this 552 area and the market's still falling is a setup. First a spot and then a setup. 552 is my spot. The market goes there and then we get a hairpin turn. And I'll make this a little bit bigger. We get a hairpin turn or a bullish engulfing pattern. The market dives down and this large candle gets erased. That's my first entry of the day. So I'm long here. That's my first trade because I found the spot, that 552 area, which was support on a 15-minute chart, even though I've gone back to the 2-minute now. And now I'm trading off the 2-minute using support from the 15-minute. That's my first trade, is a long at this point. We get a power bar through the 20, which is one of my buy setups, but I'm already long, so I'm not getting in at this point. We get a base that sets up essentially here. We break that base to the upside, so that's a buy trigger. And then the next bearish thing that I see is this large red candle taking out this green as well as this red and this green. So basically, I now have a hairpin turn here, which would take me out of this trade that was put on here. Another thing I was watching as we moved up off this level was the Fibonacci 50% retracement. This area, and you can see the market stalled out here. This is an area to watch and to tighten up stops for me, right? Because I've now had this nice move off the bottom and my Fibonacci retracement line I drew in from the beginning of the day down to this 552 level after this level was hit and we started to move higher. Now I'm watching that 50% retracement, tightening up my stops there, but I also had this buy setup taking place at that point. So no stop was triggered for me there. And the next thing that happens after this trade, after exiting this trade, was this double bottom. I actually wasn't on the desk, so I didn't trade this, but I can talk about the setup. The market moves lower. We drop back under the 20, and then we get this double bottom. And for me, again, this is a spot now where the double bottom takes place. And this, if I were on the desk, would be a trade I would take. This green taking out this small base that was set up, that's also a double bottom. That would be my entry, would be literally here as this green bar takes out this red bar, the high of this red bar. You could also enter here. This would be a fine entry as well, just a couple of cents away. And this would be my stop on this trade. The market continued higher. We had a nice power bar move. Again, another setup that I like, that based here. This would have been a buy trigger for me. I did not take this trade because, again, I wasn't back on the desk yet. And it's getting into the lunch hour. Even if I were on the desk, we move higher and then we double top. At this point, I didn't have any of this. So this is what my chart looked like. So I didn't have this Fibonacci drawn in. I didn't have this double bottom over here. As we double topped, I took this short as we broke below this base with this as a stop. So short here after finding a spot, right? The double top was my spot and this was my setup, was trading through this base with a stop here at basically the morning high. The market moved lower, and as the market moved lower and we had this fairly rapid sell-off, that's when I put on this Fibonacci And again, all you have to do is go over to the left in TradingView, click here for Fibonacci retracement. Once you click Fibonacci retracement, you click on your chart and draw your Fibonacci lines from the top of the range to the bottom of the range. I'm going to get rid of that. Once this took place, we moved lower pretty rapidly. Like I said, I was looking at this level as a support level, but nothing set up. So I was looking at this spot, just a continuation, drawing this line across as support because we had double bottomed there before. So that's now a support level that I'm watching, but nothing set up. So I didn't take any trade there. We then moved down, and I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. We moved down to this level, which is around 553. And remember, 552 is an important level from the morning, but we're not quite there. But what happens here is we get a tweezer bottom. Here the low was 553.22, and here the low was 553.20. So now I'm taking a long position above this tweezer bottom. So I'm taking the position here as this candle starts forming. This candle starts forming. I got long there off of this tweezer bottom. And I actually exited here as these two topping tails formed. My first target was just above this. I was looking for a 25% bounce in this range that was set up, which I'll go back to and show you. I was looking for a 25% bounce. It didn't happen. And when these two topping tails started forming, that's when I exited this position. The next thing I was looking for then was a double bottom here. We bottomed here, bounced, and I was looking for another double bottom. So I got long here as this green candle cleared. Again, a spot, right? It's a double bottom. That's my spot. I got long here with a stop at the low, and I ended up getting stopped out and losing. So I had made a profit on this trade, and I ended up giving some back on this trade because my stop was the low of this base, this double bottom. And that's where I got stopped out. Every trade's not going to work, right? Set your stops, take your stops, have a clear spot where you know where your stop is, right? If you find the spot for the setup, that setup is going to define where your stop is. It may be a part of the spot, which in this case is the double bottom. So my stop is through the double bottom low. So that spot becomes an integral part of the setup itself. But that's not always the case. I may have some other piece of information, some other support level, and maybe that I'm using the 20, whatever it is. That's not always going to be the case, but in this case it was. We go on throughout the afternoon and look at what happens. Here's my blue line, my 552 area blue line, and look at what happens at that, again, critical 15-minute support. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so we can look at this. And what do we have here? Another double bottom. Again, this is the 15-minute support going back several days, right? And we get another double bottom at that 552 area, which I had identified as an important area for my trading very early this morning, right? Around just after 9:45. So the double bottom is now in place here. And I'm going to zoom back in. we get really nice bottoming tails along with this double bottom. There are a couple of places to enter for me on this one, since I have both the bottoming tails and I get these two nice green candles moving up. That's one entry that's a little bit more aggressive, but I like that entry. The other entry that's less aggressive is going to be here as we clear this red. That's the other entry with a stop at the lows. So two possible entries, kind of depending on how aggressive you are in your trading, but those are the two entries that I see at this point. Again, found a spot and found a setup. Bottoming tails, the double bottom is again part of that setup because that gives me my stop, and then a move higher in the market. At this point, as we're moving higher, after I exited my trade, I drew in this Fibonacci retracement. And what I was doing, because the market had made lower lows and lower highs, here, a lower low, here, a lower low, here, and then another lower low at this final point. And the whole time it was also making lower highs, right? A lower high here, a lower high here, a lower high here. So, right, we had a clear downtrend in place going into this. And this power move through the 20 literally erased all of this short-term downtrend. So for me, now I'm looking at a reversal. Again, we're trading over the 20, which we move through with these power bars and then this move. So I'm looking for a retracement to the 50 on the Fibonacci, which set up here. This is the sweet spot here between this 50% level and the 0.61 level. This is the sweet spot on the retracement in an area where I'm looking for a possible long on the retracement. So when we started moving higher out of this retracement, I took a long as we moved here with a stop just below this 0.61 level on the Fibonacci lines. And we moved higher. This trade worked out for a scalp. And that was the end of my day. So I had several winning trades. I also had one losing trade, but the loss was small on the losing trade. So no big deal. You don't have to have an extremely high win percentage to make money, even in scalping. It's easier to do that. And most people have trouble if they're taking trades and losing half the time or even losing 40% of the time. Most people have trouble with that around risk management and how to actually make money with those trades. But what you'll see, an important part of each one of my setups was a relatively close stop. For me, I want a potential for a 2 to 3R return if possible. And I want my R or my risk to be as small as possible, especially when I'm scalping intraday. And that's why I'm looking for a spot and then a setup. I have traders constantly asking me, what do I think a stock is going to do at some random point? And the first thing I do when I pull up that chart is look for a spot. Is it near a spot? And if it's not, then my answer is I have no idea what the stock is going to do. If it's near a spot, then I can say, if this setup happens at that spot, then it's a buy or it's a short. But I have to have the spot first for my trading. And I think you as a trader should find your spot first and then the setup. So that's what a typical day looks like for me in my trading. If you want the cheat sheet on my power bar setup that I've referred to in a couple of other videos, comment stock below and I'll get that to you. If you have any questions about any of my spots and any of the trades that I took today, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I hope you found this video helpful for your own trading. And if so, please hit like and subscribe, and that'll help my channel to grow faster, and I'd appreciate it. Best of luck in your trading, and thanks for watching.